Claudio. Personally, I'm a big fan of William Shakespeare. I have always been an avid fan. I think I first read his work when I was in middle school, when I was about 14. Uh, it was the translated text of Hamlet. And I just read it because I was snobbish. I was told that Hamlet is the most famous literature in the history of English literature. So I felt kind of, I felt a need to read it to show off to people. I read Hamlet. This is the book I'm reading. It's Hamlet. But then it really didn't get me. I couldn't really understand what's going on in the text, although it was all translated into Korean. So I literally threw it away. Uh, and then when I was in high school, I think I was about 16 or 17, I turned on a TV. And those are the days when I was like always stressed out. And I turned on the TV. And on the television, there was a film adaptation of Shakespeare's Henry V. It was directed and starred by a great, great English actor and director, Kenneth Branagh. And he was giving a speech at Hafla. It's actually giving a threat to the lords of the French castle. Wonderful, wonderful words. And I instantly fell in love with it. It was not out of kind of my snobbish nature. It was just a pure love for the language. It all sounded like music. Uh, if you compare, you know, the text, I realized that the text of the play is like the notes that the composers write, and to see performed on screen, on stage, by the great actors under the near perfect direction. It was like the music being orchestrated, all those notes. So, I instantly fell in love with it. So I started collecting his books, collecting the DVDs, and it took me 6 years to read all his 39 plays, including Two Noble Kinsmen and Edward III, all 154 sonnets and the long poetries. Um, yeah, and I used to record the dialogues and monologues from the movies. I would put that into my MP3 player or my CD player. I used to listen to that instead of music because those were music. And I'm a painter, and his works, his characters that he created inspire me immensely. So I would say Kenneth Branagh's Henry V would be the film version, the screen version of any Shakespeare movie that really means a lot to me because that was the first cinematic Shakespearean experience that I had. It's the film that actually got me into Shakespeare. I also love Kenneth Branagh's other film adaptations like Hamlet from 1996, I think, which is the unabridged version of the entire Shakespeare text. You can just follow the lines as you read the book, as you read the text. It's amazing. Um, and well, last year when I was visiting England, I had the chance to see Kenneth Branagh, my hero, performing live on stage. I saw Winter's Tale by directed. I don't know. He didn't direct it. Yeah, I saw Winter's Tale starring Kenneth Branagh as Leontes and Judi Dench as Paulina. It was a very expensive production. I had to spend £160. That was the most luxurious thing that I ever done in my life, which I don't regret at all. To see my hero performing live on stage was a magical experience. And I also saw Simon Russell Beale's King Lear, which is another favorite of mine, in National Theatre, the Olivier Theatre in London. Those are the memories that I would cherish definitely for the rest of my life. Uh, and also there are like many other films that I've absolutely adored. Uh, Robert Redford's Merchant of Venice, starring Al Pacino as Shylock, and Jeremy Irons as Antonio. Ian McKellen's Richard III, Laurence Olivier's Richard III. Yeah, those movies are, um, you know, to I love the performances of Laurence Olivier and John Gielgud or Ralph Richardson, Derek Jacobi, Ian McKellen, but it is impossible for me to watch them. I would love to watch them perform live on stage, but it's impossible for me. Partially because many of them are already dead, and the rest of them they're now living and working half the globe away. And it's the films and the records of the videos of the live performances that are available readily on DVD or on PBS or on the internet that really gives me the chance to see them act, perform, deliver their lines, and those are very dear to me. British people might hate hearing this, but I don't think that Shakespeare belongs solely to England or to British culture. I think, to quote Ben Jonson, who was one of Shakespeare's contemporaries, he was his friend and rival. He said, Shakespeare, he's not of an age, but for all time. And I think that's the truth. He must not have thought, he must have had no idea when he was living and working that after, like 400 years after his death, like all around the world, like half the globe away, that in this small nation called Korea, in this small city, it's not a small city, but, in Seoul, there would be like a group of people from all over the world striving and giving their best effort to honor his works. And I think we are doing this because, all the characters he created and all the stories that he created speaks to everybody, to every generation, to people of all ages, people of all races, people from all ethnicities. And what Shakespeare teaches us, what his works teach me the most, is the diversity of everything. He wrote 37 plays, some say 39 plays. And you read them and there are so many people, so many different characters with their different mentality, with their different psychology, all of them have different reactions to all of them have different reactions to different events. There are villains, there are good people, there are bad people, there are foolish people, there are clever people. Well, I read Shakespeare just like religious people read the Bible or Quran, because it speaks to me, and it speaks to me if you read those religious books, if you read the Bible, it's all doctrines or dogmas. You should be doing this, you should not be doing that. They try to teach us about the morality and about justice and all the rules. Whereas in Shakespeare, he doesn't do that. Instead, he gives me the variety of people. And once you feel afflicted, you lost someone, or you love someone, but that person doesn't love you back. You go to places like Romeo and Juliet, you go to places like Hamlet, and you can easily find an individual who is forced into a similar situation as you, and you just go on reading his lines, you go on reading his soliloquies. And it feels so soothing and comforting to realize that 400 years ago, at least from 400 years ago, there are people like me who share the same agony, who share the same affliction or the same joy. Just read their line, you just be that character. And what Shakespeare did so brilliantly is that his dialogues expresses the person's feelings so wonderfully. So cruelly honest, so meticulously detailed about how that person is feeling. And we all have that experience that once you feel something, but you don't know what that is. You don't know how to express that. But with the help of Shakespeare's text, you get to speak that. You get to express that outwardly. And instantly, you get comfort. You feel comfortable. Uh, and that's the reason why I read Shakespeare. That's why I recommend Shakespeare to everybody else. His works is the most wonderful collection of human beings, different types of human beings. Well, Richard III could be my personal favorite, um, largely because of his opening soliloquy. Richard III is a brother to the prince, and he's a horrendous villain. And I never wish to emulate him in any way, but I respect him in a way that he's a deformed human being. He's ugly. His arm is deformed. He's a cripple. He's a hunchback. He has a twisted mind, but he doesn't shy away from his shortcomings. In his opening soliloquy, he says, "I that am not shaped for sportive tricks, nor made to court an amorous looking glass. I that am rudely shaped, and want love's majesty to strut before a wanton ambling nymph. I that am curtailed of these fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, deformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world, scarce half made up, and desolately and unfashionable that dogs bark at me as I hold by them." You know, he just expresses it. He exposes with all confidence that here I am. This is what I am. I am ugly. I am deformed. So what? This is who I am. Deal with it. And he commits like murder. He manipulates things. He has his nephews killed, and he's not like villains like Claudius or those other Shakespearean villains that who suffers the afflictions, who suffers like the remorse from what he did. Now he's just openly boasted. You know, see that? I just killed him. Wasn't that great? You know, I just wooed her. I killed her husband and her father-in-law, and I just wooed her. She now likes me. You know, was there a woman in this humor one? Was there a woman in this humor, you know, in this fashion one? And it's that confidence, not his deeds, that, well, I don't live a life that is normally recommended by the norm of Korean society. I don't belong to a company. I don't belong to any social groups. I'm just a man, a painter, trying to be an artist, you know, hanging out with different kinds of friends. And sometimes I do get like reproaches from the family members or some other from Korean, especially from elderly people, that, you know, that's the life that you will eventually regret. I'm often placed in a situation where I'm being forced, like, by other people that to a certain way of life. You know, get a good job, get a decent job, go into Samsung or LG. And it's the spirit of Richard III that makes me confident. You know, F that. This is who I am. This is the way I chose to live. You know, and I don't like kill anyone like Richard III, but, you know, that's that confidence. You know, how people, whatever people say, you know, Richard III, he says, you know, even the dogs bark at me. Those mongrels on the street bark at me. I'm a prince, but they think bark at me. People hate me. People say I'm ugly. People say I'm deformed. That's who I am. I'm a capable human being. And yeah, that's why I really enjoyed reading Richard III. And it's one of my dreams that if there's ever going to be a good production of Richard III by Seoul Shakespeare Company, I wish to take a part of it. You know, they can give me any role. They can let me play Lady Anne. I'll do it. Queen Margaret. I'll do it. Yeah. The best kind of effect that Shakespeare had on me was that it made me realize that English is a beautiful language. Well, I was born and raised here in Korea. I spent my entire life here in Seoul. And I spent many years in English hagwons, which is a private academy, language institutes in Korea. And I learned my English for about more than 10 years. And then, all of a sudden, by the time I became 15 or 16, all the English education system kind of turned to strictly oriented to college entrance. So it was all about memorizing vocabulary. It was all about having tests because I had to, because they wanted me to go to foreign language high school or some good university. And in Korea, getting a good job or getting into a good university, you need to have good English scores in either TOEIC or TOEFL. So I quit. I quit that English institute. I told my mom that, Mom, I'm afraid I'm beginning to lose my interest in English, as a language. It all became a mean to get into university, and I just don't want to do it. So I quit that English hagwon, and after about a year, I got into a new English institute, which was totally different than the previous one, and they had this amazing English classes. They didn't teach English, but they taught something else with English. So on their list, they had philosophy class, literature class, sociology class, and they also had Shakespeare class. So I took that Shakespeare class, and that's when I learned with English text for the first time the text of Midsummer Night's Dream, Richard III, and Hamlet, one from tragedy, one from comedy, and one from history. And it was so wonderful. So what Shakespeare did to me was that it made me realize that, wow, so English is not all about a mean to get into a good university. The language itself was so beautiful. So beautiful. All the verses he created, all the prose he created, all the wordplay, all the poetry, all the rhymes. It all sounded like music. It all had its rhythm, and all the expressions. It was so beautiful. And, well, once you read Shakespeare in translated text, well, for example, To Be or Not to Be, once it's translated into Korean, it becomes as simple as 사느냐 죽느냐, 죽느냐 사느냐, which means it just blatantly say, should I live or should I die? It becomes so simple. But it does mean that Hamlet's affliction is that he is contemplating between life and death. Shall I live? Shall I live this miserable life with all this agony and affliction, or shall I just die? Should end this? Well, it means shall I live or shall I die? But it's not about that. It's that brilliant way of sum it all up into one brief, beautiful sentence with just 10 rhythms. To be or not to be, that is the question. But there's no way we can translate that into Korean with that essence, because we don't use like be verbs. So I understand that the translators, the best way they could come up is to just say, just expose the meaning. It's not all about that. So I think that all the Shakespeare, the poetry, like all forms of literature, or those Korean arts like pansori or Korean poetries, they can never be fully translated. And I feel so lucky that it was a very good decision that I studied English very hard, because I could understand. I can now, although not 100%, but I can at least read Shakespeare's text. I can at least grab hold of what it means. I can at least understand what the joke is about. What kind of wordplay are hidden beneath it. So, reading Shakespeare, something like Shakespeare's language in translated form, is pretty much like seeing viewing a beautiful painting of the Impressionists. You get the form, you get the idea of what's being depicted on canvas. That's a tree, that's a train, that's a cathedral, but you don't really get the color, which is one of the essential thing on that canvas. So I think what Seoul Shakespeare Company is contributing like wonderfully to this Korean community, to this Korean society, is that we are actually giving them the chance, probably the only chance, to enjoy Shakespeare's plays with the language, with his own language, the language that he has written uh, with. So yeah, so I hope people would enjoy. Although they have no idea what's being said on stage, it's worth the effort to listen to Shakespeare's language in his Shakespeare's words in his own language, because they're just simply beautiful, utterly beautiful. Yeah. Seoul Shakespeare Company means a lot to me in many ways. Well, in the broad sense, it's because we are the only company in Seoul that is solely devoted to Shakespeare's works, and we do that in his own language, which is a wonderful thing. It hardly ever happens in Korea. In Korea, if you're a Korean audience, or if you are someone who resides in Korea, you really don't get to watch Shakespeare being performed in his own language unless we have like very expensive imported production from abroad for a very brief period of time. So we give annual performances, uh, and that gives the audience the a very good chance to enjoy Shakespeare's text in its original sense. And personally, well, I get to meet people, wonderful people, who share the same passion, the same zeal, and the bond is always very strong. And the important thing I think is that it's a non-profit organization, which means that we don't do it for money. None of us are doing this for money. We are not making anything out of it, and I think that's because miracles happen every time that we do something. People, wonderful people come, they donate their talent, they donate their money, they are willing to help in whatever they can do, whatever they can contribute. People come from abroad, they travel half the globe just to watch this production. And although we have never met before, there are people who are just helping us all around the world. And that's wonderful. I think it's truly amazing, and it's because we are not doing this for money. It's a group that is purely comprised of people with their love for this material, for the love of what they do, and that's enlightening. That really speaks a lot, and that inspires me. And every day I wake up, it still feels like a miracle that I'm a Korean boy, and I'm doing Shakespeare in his own language and on a proper stage. How could that happen? It's amazing. And if someone asked me what's the best thing that you ever done in the past decade, I would, without a moment of hesitation, I would say that day back in 2011, I just walked in to the audition room when Seoul Shakespeare Company was just formed and they're about to perform. They're about to stage a show called Mirth and Merriment. That day, you know, from because of that day, I got to meet these wonderful people. I got to be a part of this wonderful organization. Yeah, and it's a big part of my life at the moment, and I cherish it. I love it. For this particular production of Much Ado About Nothing, I am very looking forward to it. I'm actually looking forward to all of its process, all of its stagings, largely because of our director, Michael Downey. Because Michael Downey, he's like the Richard Burbage of our company. He played many of our title roles. He's a great actor, and because of that, he knows 100% what it is like to be an actor on stage, and I'm pretty sure that he's going to incorporate that to his direction. And when he told me that will be this production is going to be more traditional, we'll keep all those Elizabethan practices, no blackouts, no long and tedious scene changes, I was enthralled. I was excited because in many of the modern productions, they try to combine like cinematic elements to the play, like projections, like wild lighting, special effects, and all the sudden scene changes that are like jump cuts in the movies. And I don't really like that. I think in many cases they kind of besmirch the real essence of theater. And I think Michael shares the same kind of belief, and there is going to be more interaction with the audience. There will be a living live actors. There will be a living live audiences. There's going to be more interactions, more energy. So I'm pretty sure this production will be more inviting to the world that we are trying to create, that is filled with fun, filled with mirth, and filled with merriment. I think this is going to be great. For an actor, it's a great opportunity, I think, to be like a stage actor. You're not doing this for a movie. This is not a movie shoot. This is something that you do on stage with those people who are watching you right in front of you. So I think this is going to be a great experience for me and for everybody who is involved in this production. Well, for other actors, I'm very excited to see Jamie's uh, Benedict, because he was wonderful as Saturninus, this whining man-boy king emperor in Titus Andronicus. And yes, I'm going to play Claudio in this production, and I am excited. Firstly, because in our previous production, Titus Andronicus, I played a horrendous human being. I played a villain. I played Chiron, and I raped, I killed, and I mutilated people. But this time I'm going to play a young, noble, a lovable gentleman. But what is so wonderful about every Shakespeare character is that he never kind of gave us the plain good guys or plain bad guys. Well, my character seems to be like a plain, a lovable gentleman, but he has his own afflictions. He has his own flaws. My character does make terrible decisions. He does commit terrible deeds. He feels jealous. He's incompetent in a way. Somehow he's snobbish. And it's all combined into one character. And I'm very excited to portray him it has to be likable, because he is one of the characters, one of the lovers in the characters. So Claudio is basically the comedy version of Othello. So if it was a tragedy, this young man could have, if he had taken one more step further, he could have easily became younger version of Othello, who ends up committing like terrible thing, which would definitely end up in his own demise. But it's a comedy. So, and I love comedies because we can all enjoy what we do without those like intense emotional moments. There is going to be emotional moments, but you can be more lighthearted and it'll be more enjoyable to the audience because it's a comedy and it all ends up with a happy ending. And so I'm pretty sure it's going to be fun, yeah, to watch. My character may not be as comical and as energetic as Benedict or Beatrice, but yeah, he's kind of, I think he's there to make a distinctive comparison between Beatrice, that couple, Beatrice and Benedict. Me and Hero is like a one distinctive love line, and there's another Benedict, and which are totally different, and that's what makes this play so funny, so enjoyable, so entertaining. There's this couple who are slightly older than us. They hate each other. All they say to each other is not love poetry. It's a contempt, and eventually they end up being a couple. And our love line is like we fall in love in first glance, and then our relationship kind of degrades into something terrible because of what I'm not gonna give away any spoilers, but because of something that a villainous character does. So for the audience to find a parallel, and at the same time the difference between these two groups would be another joy of watching the play, watching this particular production. Yeah.